We've just released some extremely powerful bet tracking and analysis capabilities in A-Train Station. You want to check them out? Watch this video.
You can do anything, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna
In the rest of this video, I was on my live stream and I took the time, it took us a while to go through all the details of some new features that we just released with A-Train Station to do bet tracking, do calculations around EV, do calculations around closing line values in ways that we have not seen before. It has great search capabilities and you can slice and dice and do things in a lot of different ways. And we're going to continue to enhance this. So by the time you watch this video, there's likely going to be some additional improvements or tweaks that we've made to that functionality, but we wanted to get it out right now so that anyone who's a station member today can use this information and use that bet tracking and wager analysis screen as best they can. And as we continue to add features, we will be able to build on top of that. And so we'll create new videos going forward as we get further down the road. But I wanted to release something today so that all of you with A-Train Station right now understand what it is that we're doing, why this is important, and how we're doing things a little bit differently than you might have seen with other tools. So oh man, I'm so excited for the nerds. The people that like, we should all be data driven, but data driven brings out a certain type of personality, which is one that, you know, likes to dabble with spreadsheets and do some other calculations and whatnots and hooty-doos. And so that is, we got a treat for you. I am one of you. Just hold on. This is going to be fun. All right. So just to orient you, what we're looking at is yesterday's betting activity. We have a search bar here. The search bar is very cool because you can do things like say, I want to look at everything at Caesars. Everything I did at Caesars yesterday was this. And I only graded a few of them, but I can see my closing line value was 0.45%. So I was positive on closing line value, but not very. And so let me walk through. Okay, let me walk through what it is. All right, so the search bar, you can do that. You can search on it, and it's all instant, just like the play screen. Okay, odds are the odds that you've placed it at. EV is a percentage of that play. Okay, so these are all filtered. If you put in the odds, these are the odds that you play. You can put in a range for that. So if I wanted to just say, all right, I want to look for everything that was above 100, I can just put in 100 there, and I could say, okay, these are all my plus 100 plays, my plus money plays. I could also do, so you don't need to do both sides. I can also do 100 here. Eric even told me this one ahead of time. He said, okay, 100 here. Now I can do all the minus money plays or all the, you know, leaning towards favorites. They're not necessarily a favorite because at minus 103 or something like that, you're probably still a dog, but not too substantially. So you can play with those. And by the way, all these numbers, which we'll get to in a minute, they all update instantly because all the calculations are being done with whatever comes into that list. It's really clever and it's really powerful to be able to slice and dice any way you want to the numbers that you're looking at. And we'll get to what these numbers mean. There's a reason. There's a reason. CLV, same deal. You can look at the ones that you had plus CLV. So if I can say I want to look at anything below 0, so look at all my negative CLV plays. Look at that. Look at that. It's so cool. See that CLV? It's all the negative ones, right? I had 25 plays yesterday that had negative CLV, right? Whereas if I want to look at all the positive CLV plays, what was I doing right? On my positive CLV plays, I average 4%, right? So I can see that. So, all right, so that's fine. Wins, loss, pushes, ungraded. If I want to just look at the wins. So once I've graded them, that's fine. Once I've all my losers, if I want to look at anything that pushed, this is going to be interesting once you grade them too, because those are the ones that you might say, oh, that bet got canceled, or that bet it just had a push, or got, the player didn't play or whatever. So those are some interesting ones because you're going to want to check with the books sometimes to see like, what did it get graded as an error? Because like we're going to do some auto grading here pretty soon. And when we do that, that's going to be a scenario of it should have been graded this way, except there might be reasons that it got graded differently because we're not connected to your book. So we won't be able to see those changes. You'll have to be able to edit those. So just again, be aware that this tool is going to be really useful. But I will tell you what I was doing when I was so let me show you what I was actually doing. Let me bring back Pickett for a second. So if I go back to Pickett and I look back at yesterday's bets, right? So yesterday's bets, and I go back to Pickett here. And I can say, all right, I want to enter my results off of Pickett. I was having trouble before entering my results because it was hard to dig through the list and match them up because I couldn't get them to sort exactly the same way. But so here, if I want to say, I want to see Trey Lyles, I just go to the search bar, which you can't see right now. So if I go to the search bar and I say, I'm going to type in Lyles, I can just bring it right up. It comes right up and then I grade it and then it goes away. Right. And so like I could do that and I say, all right, I just want to look at my ungraded plays. So this list gets shorter as you grade your plays. And you could say, okay, let's go through at DraftKings for anything yesterday. And then I could pull up my DraftKings on my phone and say, okay, let's go look at the graded plays. I got to log in still, but like I can just go look at the graded plays at DraftKings and just walk through this list and grade them that way. So you can grade them book by book, you can grade them off Pickett, you can grade them wherever. But that's going to help you go much faster in sorting through this as you're grading plays too. So again, this helps on that side as well because we have all the grading activity right here. That's the filtering mechanisms that we have up here. Very, very powerful, very, very fast. Kind of our jam. That's kind of what we do here. That's our thing. Next, let's get into the gritty and all the other stuff. Here are the odds, right? So we're going to go through these one by one. The odds are favorites and underdogs. So favorites followed by the number of which are underdogs. This isn't, and I want to be very clear because we had to design this very intentionally. This is not how many minus money and how many plus money plays. Because that, like I mentioned before, that's not underdogs and favorites, right? Underdogs and favorites are which one had the no vig line on the positive side or the negative side. And that gets a little complicated, but the fact is that there's always a favorite and a dog unless they are a coin flip. It's almost never exactly a coin flip. So I don't know that that's going to really happen very often. But so we're looking at, was this a favorite or a dog? So in this case, I played 36 favorites and 34 dogs, but I had, so if you see middle simple average odds of all the bets made, I had odds that I played at plus 110, whereas the no vig odds overall were at plus 101. So I was playing more underdogs by number on plus money, even though I had more favorites based on the likelihood of winning, is effectively what the no vig line calculations is allowing us to do. So that's exactly kind of what you would expect. I wanted to have, and this, I ended up winning more than I had expected to. But this is what the odds tell you is like, how much was I weighted towards favorites or underdogs today? Because that's going to inform how well I did against the likelihood of winning. We're going to go from there. And we have wagers. So this is the top one is the average amount wagered. So it's simply taking, I had 70 bets. I had 4,700 in action yesterday. I had divided by 70 is my $67. So that's my average bet size for yesterday. Total amount wagered, total number of bets. Pretty straightforward information there. Okay, we're gonna complicate things a little bit. So what we've done is we've done EV, CLV, and return on investment. This is what you assessed. This is your strategic impact. This is what the market tells you your effectiveness was, and this is what variance made your results actually be. Okay. So with EV percentage, remember, this is what we are playing the game at, where we're playing the bet at, versus what the no vig odds are. And obviously the no vig odds can be calculated a number of different ways. These are what your selected no vig odds were. So this is what you thought you were playing into, right? You thought you were getting a 4% EV on average across those 70 plays that I had yesterday, right? And on that, the middle is what we would have expected. So we've already done the wager size, the average bet size. This is what our expected return would be if we had just bet exactly the same amount. Like we took the entire EV of all of it, mashed it all together, and bet on it equally on each play. So that's what we would have expected from an EV percentage based on that, right? So it's if all the wagers have been made with the same bet size, that's what it was. So this tells you how good were your picks. That's what this is. So your picks based on your analysis, in this case, 100% of them looked good when I made the analysis. So based on my strategy, my picks looked 100% good. That's probably close to what you're usually going to have. Unless the line moves out from under you and you still bet it, or you bet some other strategy that doesn't have an EV calculation, this is going to be close to 100% because you're trying to make profitable bets every time, right? Fine. The dollars EV, this is the percentage of the weighted average, weighted by the amount wagered. Now, I'm not doing huge swings on a lot of my bet sizing, so it doesn't really surprise me that we have bet sizing that is relatively close to our flat EV. That's probably pretty aligned with my strategy at the moment, and that's not bad. I had a slight advantage on the expected return on the day. So I expected to make $200 in the long term yesterday. All right. And then the bottom is just the count. How many wagers did I make with positive EV versus negative EV? Just on my strategy. Okay. So those are all interesting there. Now, focus a lot of our energy on the betting function itself, right? You go and you make bets. But when it's all said and done, you need to understand, was my strategy effective and did I get lucky or unlucky today? And that you want to try to pull apart as much as possible. And we have this concept of the simple virtuous cycle. So it's what we do is measure, identify improvements, improve, and then repeat, right? So the idea is that you measure and you say, what can I get from data? What data can tell me things? So you compile all of that, make sure you're tracking as much of the information as possible. Then you analyze it. You analyze it and you say, okay, what can this tell me? And this is what we're doing right here is what can this tell me that might be beneficial for me to adjust my behaviors going forward? Because that's how data drives value. Then when we see, okay, I know this has gone a little bit weird. This strategy seems to be working. This is done. You hypothesize, right? You come up with new ideas to say, okay, I'm going to make these tweaks to my betting strategy. We do that all the time too. Every day, coming in, I'm limiting my Caesars bet size right now because I've seen Caesars is continually beating me, and I don't like it. But I'm going to keep pushing on them because I think I can beat them, but I'm not going to risk too much money until I'm pretty sure I can beat them. So I'm making those adjustments, right? Now I'm going to have better insights into that. Then finally you go bet, right? So that's where you go and bet. And like during power hour is not the time to be hypothesizing. I wonder if I should change this thing. No, that's not what you do during power hour. During power hour, you go bet, man. You go bet, right? You have your strategy, you know what you're going to do, and you go play the game, right? So that is how you do it. It's you're in the ring and in the boxing match, you're getting punched. You got no time to think about strategy when you're in the middle of power hour, right? So you analyze, you react to it, you use the information, but you're not coming up with new strategies during power hour. This is the time where we're doing that. So that's why this is important and valuable. Okay, so we've covered the EV percentage. The EV is all about what you did. It's all about what you thought you were doing, what your strategy was, and all of that. Closing line value is how the market has encompassed all the information right at game time. And we need to see when we bet it with what we thought we knew at that time, how does that translate into what actually the market is telling us at the time we're making the play, right? So what we have here are two things. The first is flat CLV, which is the simple average of the CLV, because even though this is less useful, because it doesn't really tell us how our overall strategy is effective, it tells us how good our picks are as on a relative basis. And that is, so if we look at the simple average CLV of all wagers, so we remove dollars from the equation, we're just looking at the picks and the odds and the EV, right? And it's based on what the market Novig line, the default weighting Novig line has at that time. The expected return based on CLV, if all wagers have been made with the same bet size, is the middle. So then the middle here is just saying, okay, what would that return be based on that? My picks yesterday were good. They were better than zero, but they weren't great. And so we can see a difference here between EV and CLV, right? And then the percentage down here, you know what this is? The percentage of wagers with positive closing line value. This is what I call stupid CLV. This is how Odds Jam and others calculate CLV. This is how many of my plays were positive in the CLV. And I'm at 63%. That looks great, right? You're like, holy cow, that's awesome, right? That's what I call stupid CLV because it's only kind of useful. It's not that useful. It's really not. And so we thought we would include it, and it fell into the pattern that we had developed. And so it's there. You want to compare against Odds Jam? Here you go. So you can do that, even though it's stupid CLV, and I will insist on referring to it as stupid CLV going forward. I really confused Eric in our design sessions because I kept calling it stupid CLV. He's like, I can't put that on the screen. I'm like, are you sure? So we'll see. Maybe I could convince him to put like in parentheses stupid CLV here. So anyway, all right. So next, this is where it gets going, right? This is the thing you want to care about, because what this does is tells you on a dollar per dollar basis. So after you factor in your picks and your bet sizing, what is your ultimate closing line here? And what does that actually translate into expected profits? Now, in this case, again, yesterday, based on our closing line values in our default weightings, this shows me that on the top one, weighted average closing line value percentage of all wagers weighted by the amount wagered. So it's weighted average. middle expected return based on the bet sizing and the closing line. And the bottom is the number of wagers with positive, negative closing line value. So these are the counts again. So I had one that was a tie, but we had others there. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that we're still trying to make our closing line value logic a little bit more sophisticated. I think we're underreporting this in a lot of cases, and that would impact here, too. But it's because when lines move off the number in our favor, we have some additional logic to put in to help identify that. So right now, this CLV number is going to tend to be lower, I think, than often it really should be. We're going to improve that over time. It's still very directionally useful, but don't sweat the fact too much that you have positive EV percentage here of 4%, and here you have 0.57%. It's still profitable. This is probably underreported, and we'd rather err on the side of being too conservative than too aggressive on that. Okay? So again, you have the counts here. Then finally, you have return on investment. Now keep in mind, EV is what your strategy was. CLV tells you this difference tells you how effective was your strategy based on market information, loosely. Again, there's a lot of margin of error and estimates in this. The difference between CLV and ROI tells you what? How good was your variance yesterday? So in this case, now granted, I didn't finish all of my bet grading, so this is a little bit, looks even better, right? But in this case, my return on investment for yesterday, for the bets that were graded, let's see if I do this. Yeah, the ROI is the same. So, but you can look at the ones that have been graded so far. My closing line value was actually negative based on our over conservative calculation on CLV. But you can see here, flat ROI, again, what the percent return would have been if all wagers had been made with the same bet size. This is a kind of theoretical number. I almost called it a theoretical number because you would never actually be able to make all the bets with exactly the same bet size. However, I think from an analytics perspective, it's interesting. So we included it, it fit the pattern, and I think it's interesting, even though when it comes to dollars and cents on the variance, it's your return on investment is the number that ultimately tells you your results and the impact of variance on your actual betting activity. Middle is the actual return that you would expect if all the wagers have been made with the same size. Bottom, the percentage of wagers which won. So we won 62% of the bets that have been graded so far. Again, over it's greener than it should because we actually won 600 yesterday. So if I add it all back in, then we would have the accurate ROI there. And then obviously here, the percent is the return on actual investment. So the amount of money I bet. So that's the actual return on investment, the actual return on the day, and then the record on the actual results. So all of these together now can provide you a deep amount of analysis. And what's so cool is that I can look at it, FanDuel. How did we do at FanDuel yesterday? We kicked their asses because that's what we do at FanDuel, right? So we kicked their butts over there at FanDuel yesterday, and that's exactly how it should be. Or we could say, okay, how do we do on anything that was 0 to 2% EV? Right? So we could say, okay, the average of that, there was only 2 bets. This is that. And so all of these update immediately. So you can start to slice and dice and look at these things in real time, just looking at different strategies. It also works on the tags, right? So do I have any that have tags in here? I don't know if I do. I didn't tag much yesterday. So yeah, I don't see any with tags. But if I edit it, I could edit one. Here, let's just edit a random one down here. I can look at this and say test, right? So we're going to update that wager. And now I could just go into my search criteria here and go test. Boom, right there, right? So this is the kind of power that we give you in the analysis. This is how we do shit. It might take us a minute. Granted, we've only been alive for 2 months here. So, okay, I think we're doing all right. But when we do it, we fucking do this shit right. We do it right. So hopefully that information was useful to you, and you now have a better sense of how we are doing bet tracking and running the calculations that you need to have as a sharp sports bettor in your day-to-day activity, and how you are going to analyze with closing line value, and how we're going to slice and dice things and be able to just help you home in on what the most effective strategies for sports betting are that you are going to want to use. And so it's such an important part of any sports bettor's repertoire, is being able to go back and look at how was my previous performance and manage to separate the strategy from the results, from the luck. And in the video that you just watched, it's really about realizing, like, I got lucky yesterday. I had a great day, but you look at the closing line, you're like, oh, it's just okay, right? It was still positive. It was still clearly good. And we know that that's going to be a little bit underrepresented in terms of what the true odds are likely to have been from a market perspective. But it's so important to be able to separate yourself from the strategic effectiveness, from the variance, from the luck on a day-to-day basis. And so hopefully now you have some better tools available to you to be able to analyze that and help you elevate your sports betting to that next level. So with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining. For now, this train's leaving the station. Until next time, save the units for the bros and do your betting like the pros.